because there are some issues, so it will just help us.
Yeah. What had happened to that Pune, well spun or whatever you're talking about, Commander Mukherjee?
Sir, I will discuss this with you separately, sir. I think there are members joining in now, so
Okay,
the
okay,
global
fine.
communication is available to all. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay, fine. Right. I'm sorry, Aurora sir, I'm not able to switch on my camera.
No problem, sir. No problem at all. As long as the speaker's camera is on, we are happy.
Sir, Dr. Moti, sir, these speakers have not yet joined in. If you can just request, because
Yeah,
it's
okay,
it's
fine,
about
fine.
time, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
I see the director joining in.
Okay. Dr. Chetoraj.
Yeah, Chaturaj, yes. But I've given the permission. Why he's not joined in? Yeah.
Yeah.
Dr. Suman Mishra is also joined in.
Good morning, Dr. Chetoraj. Good morning, Dr. Chetoraj.
His his mic is off.
Yeah, okay, fine.
Dr. Chaturaj, welcome Delhi branch webinar. And Dr. Chaturaj again coming in.
Hello, good morning.
Morning, ma'am. Morning. Dr. Chaturaj is here now.
Good morning.
Morning, Dr. Chaturaj. This is Satya Arora from Delhi.
Oh, hello.
How are you,
morning, sir? Morning, sir. This is Commodore Ravichandra.
Hi, Commodore Ravichandra. How are you, sir?
Oh, thank you so much, sir. And it's a pleasure to interact and meet up and listen to eminent speakers from your institute, sir. Thank you so much for our this thing, sir.
Oh, it's our pleasure. It's our privilege to interact with all of you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Let us know when we can start.
Hi, sir. We will wait for the coordinator, sir. You will just wait for maybe another couple of minutes. We will begin the thing.
Dr. Sahu is yet to join.
Okay, Dr. Chetoraj Murthy here.
Yes, Murthy.
Actually, Commodore Ravichandra was at INS Exila when we initially started the project for INS
Okay.
Exila.
Okay, great.
He is the person we initiated.
Okay.
And so we are known each other before.
Thanks to Commodore Ravichandra and others, we now have a very good interaction with Navy, and we want to build on that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Surely, sir. It's our great benefit is to the Navy, sir, by interacting with your prestigious team.
So this is the Institute of Marine Engineers, right?
Yes, sir. That's right, sir. It's a Delhi chapter's Institute of Marine Engineers, sir.
Okay.
Where we have all members span India marine associated with marine engineering.
Okay, great.
Yes, Mr.
Dr. Ravichandra is the chairman of Delhi branch.
And you are the secretary?
No, I'm not secretary. I'm the PR committee chairman.
Okay.
And governing council member.
Okay.
And Commander Mukherjee is the honorary secretary of Delhi branch.
Okay.
We have 8 branches, sir, and headquartered at Navi Mumbai. And we have a president. We have a president in Mumbai at the moment, and the chairman are of each branch.
Okay, sir. And so it's mostly people from the Navy, merchant, or as well as defense.
Yes, sir. Marine engineers mostly. A few electrical engineers are there. They are also welcome as long as they're connected with the marine field.
Correct. So right now, talking of merchant navy, it must be a little down, right?
Very much down, sir. Every year we expecting a little bit improvement, but for 10 years now, and it's just down and down and down.
Yeah, especially
I
because of
see.
COVID and all.
Yes, sir. Not only COVID, the worldwide it is like that, sir.
Oh, okay.
IG Sadanandan has joined us.
Hello, sir.
How are you, Sir Saab?
Sir, Arora sir, both the speakers are online, sir.
Yes, sir. I saw that. Dr. Sahu has also come in, and we'll wait for a few more minutes.
Okay, fine.
Then I'll hand over to Commodore Ravi Chandra. We'll get some more people coming in.
Sir, the bulk of people will join between 11 and 11:04. We can start by 11:05.
Yeah, 11:05,
Yes,
I
sir.
think
Yes,
is the best
sir.
time
Yes,
to
sir.
start.
People will join after 11 only, sir. Yes, sir.
Look, they'll start coming at 11 o'clock. I see the president of the institute is here. He's welcome. How are you, Uday? And here we have our senior member, Govinder Kapoor, joining in.
Gentlemen, good morning. Happy to be here. Ravichandran, sir.
Sir, morning, sir. Morning, sir. Very good morning, sir.
How are you, sir?
Fine, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
The COVID has kept us from meeting each other, but I hope we'll be able to do that soon.
No, sir. The flip side is we are learning some technology also.
Sadanandan, sir, good morning to you, sir.
His mic is off. His mic is muted.
Sati, sir. Sati, sir.
Yeah.
Ganpati Puja is going on at home. So
Yeah. Please.
No,
Join in whenever you can. Join in.
I'll be here for the starting. Then I'll just attend the puja and I'll come back.
Yeah. 11:05 will start.
Yeah.
And then you can come back whenever you want.
Yeah.
And congratulations. आपको बहुत बहुत बधाई हो उदय.
थैंक यू सर. सर आप तो वैसे ही हमेशा मुझे कॉन्ग्रेचुलेट और बधाई देते हो सर.
Sir, may I please request the non-speakers to kindly switch off their audio and video? It will only improve the quality of the webinar. Thank you.
Uday, please put up your video as well. Thank you.
So is it improving in Delhi, COVID-wise? I understand it's coming down, right? In Delhi.
Sir, it's a sine curve. It goes up and down.
We have got used to it, sir. I think that is a we wear a mask. Everything is open, and we go to office, and maybe 2-3 minutes of extra prayer every day.
Everything is open, is it?
Yes, sir. Normal, sir. Life is normal.
Okay.
Traffic is back, so that is an indicator that things are normal.
Just saw that there was a serological test, and about 30% of Delhi people were infected or have antibodies.
Yes, sir. It is that all is well psychology.
Yeah. Okay.
I think another 2 minutes and we'll start. Ravi, please put off your video.
Ravichandar, have you haven't had a chance to visit us, have you?
No, sir. No, sir. Not yet, sir.
Ravi says,
Definitely
Deva,
we
please
will
put
do
off your video.
We'll do that, sir.
Sure.
But I've been interacting with NML for at least now 10-15 years.
10-15 years?
Yes, yes. I have done
Oh.
some 2-3 tenures in Vizag. So anything to do with metallurgy, life assessment, or the go-to institute was NML.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. But DMRL was close at hand. You did not, but they would not be so much interested in maybe steel components.
No, sir. We interact, but we found like we were able to move ahead with association with NML on whatever we wanted to do. Sir. So that's actually it's meeting our requirement at least to keep our nose above water.
That's very good to hear. We really want to get associated with all marine organizations. We had a good rapport with Air Force once upon a time. We still do, but with marine navy especially, we did not have such a rapport. But now it's growing. We want to build on that.
It will be beneficial mutually, sir. Nice.
Yeah, of course.
I think we'll start the meeting now. I'm Satya Arora from Delhi branch. I'm the chairman PR committee, and I welcome everyone. And I would request our chairman Delhi branch, Commodore Ravichandar, to introduce the director and the speakers. Over to Commodore Ravichandar.
Thank you, Dr. Arora. Thank you so much. First of all, a very good morning to everyone who is participating in this knowledge sharing webinar. Today we have two eminent speakers to deliver their talks on two interesting topics of research. Both the speakers are from one of India's prestigious and leading research institute, the National Metallurgical Laboratory, Jamshedpur. I would like to first of all extend my gratitude to NML for accepting the invitation and fun for the speakers to deliver their talks. And also personally, because of my long association with NML, I would like to thank them for all the pioneering work NML has done with Navy as far as GT components, life assessment, and all those metallurgical help, whatever they could give to Navy. Also today we are privileged to have amongst us Dr. Indranil Chattoraj, Director NML. He is a graduate in metallurgical engineering from IIT Kanpur, a MS and a PhD from Ohio State University, USA. Dr. Indranil Chattoraj has authored more than 100 papers published in various journals, has delivered more than 30 invited talks, and has 3 copyrights and 1 patent to his credit. Some of his other accomplishments are Young Scientist Award from CSIR in 1997, Metallurgist of the Year by Ministry of Steel in 2011, and Meritorious Contribution in Research and Education by National Association of Corrosion Engineers in 2014. Dr. Indranil Chattoraj has been the director of NML since 2017. Now moving on to those two eminent speakers for the day. First, Dr. J.K. Sahu, who will be delivering a lecture on hot corrosion effect on mechanical properties of gas turbine materials. Presently, he is a senior principal scientist at NML, a recipient of DARD Fellowship from Germany. To his credit, he has 3 PhDs and 90 publications on mechanical property evaluation of materials. The second speaker for the day is Dr. Suman Mishra, Chief Scientist and Head HR Group at NML. She is a PhD from IIT Kharagpur in Material Science. She has over 100 publications to her credit. Also a recipient of Vasik Award for Women Scientists and Best Metallurgist Award. Dr. Suman Mishra would be delivering her talk on advanced coatings. Before we move on to the lectures for the day, may I request Dr. Indranil Chattoraj, Director NML, for his introductory remarks. Over to you, sir. Thank you.
Good morning and a very warm welcome to all the participants. It's a pleasure and a privilege to be associated with the Institute of Marine Engineers. It's also a pleasure and privilege to note that the president of the institute is himself joining in this particular webinar. And we are very thankful to Commodore Ravichandar, Commander Mukherjee, Mr. Arora for organizing this particular lectures by my colleagues, both of whom are experts in their respective fields. What we have found is cross-pollination of knowledge is extremely important for any development. And that is exactly what we are doing with the Navy. We have a number of programs with the Navy. Quite a few of it is related to remaining life assessment, to rejuvenation, on prediction of life and associated technologies, in which NML, of course, has a leading role in this country. And it has been a pleasure. It has been a pleasure as well as a knowledge sharing experience working with the Navy. There are certain gaps that we fill up, and there are certain gaps which the naval experts fill us with to help us carry out all these activities. And we see a very good synergy between Navy and the metallurgical expertise of this country, which is also very needed. We need to go in for indigenous developments in a number of components required by the Indian Navy. And NML is trying its best to fill up those gaps. And it's not only NML, there are other organizations which are equally concerned. Today we are talking about Make in India, today we are talking about import substitution. And therein the expertise on materials will stand out. The expertise on metallurgy and metals will be a very important requirement to fill out those lacuna that we have in matters of import substitution, especially for strategic components, of which the Navy is surfeit with. So that is an association which has been very symbiotic, very synergistic, and it's an association we would like to build on. And with that intent, this lecture series has been organized, but we would like to tell you, my colleagues rather, would like to talk about certain expertise that NML has had over the last few decades. And without really getting into their times, I would like to hand it over to the two experts who are going to deliver lectures on coatings as well as on oxide corrosion after this introductory remark. Let me just add that it's a pleasure, it's a privilege, and we are very grateful to be a part of this lecture series and this webinar in association with the Indian Institute of with the Institute of Marine Engineers. Happy day, good day to all of you. Stay safe. Thank you so much. Commodore Ravichandar, it's over to you, sir.
Dr. Sahu, if you're all set, you can commence with our first talk for the day. Please, over to you.
Okay.
Is it good morning? Is it visible to all?
Yes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Please go ahead, sir.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Happy morning to all of you. It's nice to be in this podium and delivering the webinar on a very lively issue for marine propulsion, that is hot corrosion effect on the mechanical properties of gas turbine materials. As you know, gas turbine has been increasingly used for ship propulsion nowadays, and in addition to the mechanical property, when this is being used for ship propulsion, hot corrosion is one of the major degrading mechanisms which also affect the mechanical properties of the gas turbine material. So today I'll give a brief overview of all this, and I'll touch upon the work in NML on that area. This is the outline of my talk. I'll be going through the 30 minutes in this under these 4 headings. Initially, hot corrosion induced failure cases in gas turbine engine components. I'll cite some of the examples how hot corrosion can lead to catastrophic failure in gas turbine engine components, particularly used for ship propulsion. The next is I'll just give some brief definition of what is hot corrosion, what are the sources, what are the types, and how it affects the mechanical properties. The third is most important. When you do evaluation of mechanical properties like fatigue and creep, the hot corrosion further degrade the material properties or fatigue creep properties. Then how to simultaneously study hot corrosion and the mechanical property in the lab scale, which can provide authentic data to the designer on the component life. Then I'll cite some of the interesting results that has been done in NML. So first, hot corrosion induced failure cases in a gas turbine engine components. What you see here in the picture is a gas turbine engine. Specifically, if you I divide it into A, B, C, 3 areas. A is the compressor area. There is a series of compressor, different stages of compressor. Then B, then is the C. Now, when the gas turbine is used for ship propulsion, along with the air, the lot of marine salt are ingested into the inside the engine. This passes through different stages of combustor, then come to different stages of compressor, then comes to combustor, then goes to turbine. The compressor, in the compressor stage, maximum temperature say 600 to 700 degrees centigrade. This salt cause stress corrosion cracking. Most of the compressor materials are titanium based alloy, Ti 64, IMI 834, etc., etc. And these components are affected by the salt, but that is called stress corrosion cracking because the temperature is less. Once they enter into the combustor, where there is a air and fuel mixture, and once the combustion starts, the temperature shoots up to about 1000 degrees centigrade. So this salt initially, it is only sodium chloride, they get mixed with the impurity of the fuel, sulfur and vanadium, etc. And all this salt together get melted at this temperature and affect the mechanical properties of the load bearing component. Again, when they enter into a turbine, the same thing happens. So combustor and the turbine section in the gas turbine engine are more susceptible to hot corrosion. So the mechanical properties in this section are affected by hot corrosion. So in marine gas turbine engine, the air which enters compressor is contaminated with salt particles. The prominent salt in sea environment is sodium chloride. The condition of stress, temperature, and salt air environment can lead to stress corrosion cracking of compressor component. But in combustor, the air mixes with the fuel containing impurity like sulfur and vanadium, and this leads to salt mixture of NaCl, sodium sulfate, and vanadium oxide. These salt together bring down the melting point. They form a mixture called eutectic mixture. They bring down the melting point and get deposited on the component and cause the hot corrosion. And consequently, they degrade the mechanical property. Like life of marine engine is very much dependent on performance of its critical component like blade, disc, shaft. The mechanical properties that determine life of these components are basically creep and fatigue, and hot corrosion is known to degrade the creep and fatigue life in this component. These are some failure cases due to hot corrosion in a gas turbine used for seat propulsion. This is, you can see a low pressure turbine blade. The hot corrosion has eaten away a section in the leading edge. You can see from the first picture, the leading edge has been affected by hot corrosion. In the second picture, which is magnified, you can see from where the hot corrosion, the corroded portion, a crack is moving into the remainder of the plate. So hot corrosion is the starter, or static provide the starter or the crack initiation side, which lead to catastrophic failure of the component. So these examples are taken from mostly, these are very rarely available in open literature, particularly the engine components. They basically, some literature of GE and Rolls-Royce, who is manufacturer of this engine, they get, you get some of the literature from them on the hot corrosion effect. So this is another case of hot corrosion where the combustor liner has been affected, and from the corroded side you can see a crack moving into the remainder of the ligament. So in this section, the concluding remark, or what I want to emphasize is, hot corrosion is a failure mechanism of great concern in gas turbine engine, particularly used for ship propulsion. The hot corrosion process must be either prevented or detected at an early stage so that you can take precautions, different precautions like you wash give a wash to the engine, and different kind of precautions are there. Then the ultimate failure of turbine blades may result from a combination of hot corrosion and other mechanical failure mechanisms such as fatigue and creep. Then application of a proper combination of preventive measure and practice is significant. It helps in decreasing the number of failure due to hot corrosion. Next, I'll talk about what is hot corrosion briefly and source at different times. Hot corrosion is basically degradation of the hot gas path component in presence of a deposit of a salt or ash. Deposit modified gas-induced degradation of alloys, as the corrosion rates are significantly greater than those in the absence of deposit. What I mean is, when there is a ship propulsion, salt ingestion in the engine, then the deposit significantly reduces the mechanical life of the component. Say in turbine, the shrouds, the disc, the vanes, the blades, all these components are affected by hot corrosion, differently affected depending on their loading situation. So hot corrosion is basically an accelerated oxidation or sulfidation in presence of molten deposit. It's important that it's molten deposit compared to compressor section, as I told you, where there is also salt ingestion, but the temperature is low. That's why the salt do not melt. That's why they cause stress corrosion cracking rather than hot corrosion in the compressor section of the engine. Hot corrosion is more prevalent in the combustor and then different components of the turbine. Then what are the source? The source of the hot corrosion naturally is the marine environment. I just have some data of the salinity when it is 35 parts per thousand and 25 degrees centigrade. What are the different constituents? the salt molecule present in the seawater, then you can see sodium and chlorine are the major ones. So sodium chloride is the major chunk of the salt that enter along with the air in the compressor and the inlet section of the engine. Then other source is the fuel, is the most important source. The fuel comes into picture mainly in the combustor section. The fuel has sulfur. Invariably, some sulfur content is there depending on the grade of the fuel, and also vanadium is present in most of the fuel. The sulfur and vanadium are the major culprits to give to different salt, sodium sulfate, sodium metavanadate, sodium divanadate. So this along with sodium chloride, all three salt together, they cause the hot corrosion in the combustor and the turbine section. The hot corrosion basically is divided into two types. You know that once the combustor, the temperature is highest, the combustor, the temperature shoots up to more than 1100 degrees centigrade. Then the high pressure turbine, then the intermediate turbine, then the low pressure turbine. As you successively go down, the temperature goes less and less. The loading, say, for example, in the turbine, low pressure, high pressure turbine, you see creep loading. The vanes or the guided vanes in the turbine, you see the temperature is higher than the blades, but you see the load is very less. So different temperature, what I mean to say, different section of compressor and different section of turbines have different temperature and loading situation. So hot corrosion similarly are divided into two types. One is type 1 hot corrosion, one is type 2. Type 1 is sometimes called high temperature hot corrosion. It's basically caused by sodium sulfate and sodium chloride together. Whereas type 2 is a low temperature hot corrosion. This is basically acidic flushing due to SO2, SO3 gases. Also, the mechanism are different. The type 2 hot corrosion causes pitting, whereas type 1 hot corrosion basically causes fluxing. I'll give you some examples that has been done afterwards in the last section. But basically there are two types of hot corrosion: high temperature hot corrosion or type 1 hot corrosion, which is prevalent in the temperature range of 850 to 950 degrees centigrade, and type 2 or low temperature hot corrosion, they call it LTSC or STSC. Low temperature hot corrosion is between 600 to 750 degrees centigrade. It's a acidic fluxing and it causes pitting. Here is the graph. You can see as you increase the temperature, oxidation, and the other line is the hot corrosion and sulfidation, and that in this temperature range the corrosion rate is much more higher, so compared to oxidation alone. The common deposit, when you see the particular turbine blade which have been hot corroded, or what are the common deposit, is the sodium, potassium, calcium, and lithium, magnesium. They are nitrate, carbonate, and sulfates. And also the vanadium rich fuel is there. So vanadium pentoxide, different alkali metavanadate, these are the deposit you find. These are important salt mixture that you find in the hot corrosion failure, because of the hot corrosion. These are the important salt that has been identified and found in case of turbine, particularly in ship propulsion. So here we can conclude from this section, hot corrosion leads to loss of cross section through general corrosion. Then there is void nucleation and grain boundary. There is a alloy depletion and internal corrosion. So removal of protective oxide layer. There may be grain boundary siding. So these hot corrosion causes this, and this affects the mechanical property like fatigue and creep. So the concern is this hot corrosion affect the mechanical property, that in normal gas turbine, if there is a fatigue life, say a disc has a fatigue life of 5000 cycle, at a strain amplitude of 0.5, then in the same when it's come to seal proportion, it degrades to 2,500 or 3,000 life cycles in practice. So naturally, the hot corrosion affect the mechanical property. So yes, in the next section, I'll describe how to critically, what is the criticality of simultaneously studying hot corrosion, fatigue and creep. See, as I told you, hot corrosion takes place in the turbine. The turbine is in operation, so it's already seeing a thermal transient and fatigue or a creep, and that time hot corroded salt or the molten salt are attacking. So the fatigue and creep, the life is getting definitely altered due to hot corrosion. So why it is critical? Because now you have to design the experiment in the laboratory scale to give the data to the designer. Because as I told you, if the 5,000 cycle is the fatigue life, or say 50,000 rupture hour is the rupture time in case of creep, then they are significantly reduced in case of hot corrosion. So you have to have the fatigue and creep test designed in such a way that you will be simultaneously carrying the mechanical testing and hot corrosion will be taking place at the same time in the specimen in the laboratory scale. Why it is critical is because, as I told you, hot corrosion is prevalent only when the salt is in molten condition. It will never happen in compressor section when the salt is not molten. Now, I will go through the section. What is typical is the type of salts and composition. Actually, how do you decide in a laboratory what is sodium chloride, what is sodium sulfate or sodium vanadate? How do you coat it? Now, naturally, if you coat as much as you want, there are many papers available, say they coat 200 milligram salt per centimeter square in a specimen in a laboratory. But they will not replicate the actual condition. So for that, what you have to do, like I show you 2-3 failure cases, you have to get the real life hot corroded failure component and see the corrosion morphology. And in laboratory, you have to carry out the hot corrosion test to get the same kind of morphology so that it can replicate the actual condition. So you have to, so one has to get that morphology. After that, they have to do the chemical analysis to see what is the content, how much sulfate, how much chloride and how much vanadate is there, and accordingly decide the composition. In that case, you will get a actual the engine condition composition. Now, the test mostly in open domain is first they hot corrode the specimen, and in the corroded sample they carry the fatigue and creep test. In that case, it's not a real replication of a actual turbine. So naturally, this data will deviate from the actual cases. So the criticality is to conduct both together. Like when you conduct both together, there is a problem that you will keep the specimen, say, in a machine. Now, when you coat a salt, first of all, the problem is deciding salt composition, then coating salt on a metallic specimen. Then when you coat the salt, you take it to a melting temperature, then naturally what will happen, the salt will flow down. Once the salt is flowed down, it will not cause the hot corrosion or what is expected. So these are the critical issues with simultaneously doing a hot corrosion and fatigue test. So salt mixture composition and amount, first to decide. After that, how to coat it on the specimen and ensure that throughout the test, the salt mixture in a molten form is present on the specimen. Then you get the real data. So here is this is just an example. Say sodium chloride, sodium sulfate, the melting point is 8084. Sodium chloride 800, vanadium pentoxide 675. Suppose you decide that 5 milligram coating is representative of actual turbine condition, and say percentage you decide that I want a 70% sodium sulfate, 20% sodium chloride, and 10% vanadium pentoxide is a representative. Then this mixture, you have to do a DTG analysis to see what is the melting point. In the same melting point, you have to do a test so that the salt mixture melt during the fatigue test. In NML, we had carried out some of the work. You can see the specimens are coated, magnified. These are the creep specimen which are coated with a salt mixture. So there is a technique in which you can have an adherent salt mixture coated on that. We had done some work with DRDO to how to coat it. This is basically with a spray atomizer, there is an automatic air oven, and the specimen rotate, we coat it, and the atomized salt go and sit on the specimen. At the same time, oven is at a high temperature, the water evaporate so that the coating is adherent on the specimen. So this is what we got the salt coated specimen. And this salt coated specimen, you have to put it on a fatigue machine. As you see, this is the fatigue machine, and it's a high temperature, 800 degrees centigrade. The temperature will be there. So this salt has to melt, but it has to be viscous. That also has to be taken care, but because if the flowability is high, it's not viscous, then it will drip down and hot corrosion will not be there during fatigue or creep testing. So it has to be viscous. So this kind of choice you can do only when you carried out a DTA DTG with the mixture, intended salt mixture, to get the hot corrosion effect on fatigue and creep. Now I'll share with you some interesting results that we did at NML in collaboration with DRDO Labs. These are some of the component of gas turbine engine. Say SU718 alloy. These are the where they are used. Say here they are used in LPT disc and SPT disc. This is the temperature, this is the application, this is the failure mechanism. Say 263 is used as a combustor liner where the temperature is more, 970, and the load is 170 megapascal. So I'll give you some example of 263 alloy which is used for a combustor liner. So the two examples are hot corrosion fatigue interaction and hot corrosion creep interaction. The material is 263. The material is 263 alloy, which is used for manufacturing combustor liner in a gas turbine engine. This work was sponsored by the Gas Turbine Research Establishment, DRDO. Now, initially we see this is a fatigue, how hot corrosion interact with fatigue. This is the specimen, I have already shown it. It's a fatigue specimen which is coated with salt. This is treated with the, sorry. Huh. I'll take another 5 minutes to wind up. Yes. I'm here. Right. This is a experimental setup. This is the phatic specimen which is coated with salt mixture, and it is being put into the machine for test. So this is the phatic curve. You see the red one are the specimen which are hot corroded. This is without a salt deposition, the black one. So black and red, this is tested at the same strain amplitude, same temperature. You see the change in life. Here the life is without salt, it is 630 cycle, and with salt mixture, it is a 275 cycle. And with other temperature, with type 2 hot corrosion, is 435 cycle, and with hot corrosion, it's a 210 cycle. So there is a significant reduction in fatigue life in hot corrosion atmosphere. Then we study the micromechanism. This kind of study, how does it help? It first of all helps the designer. Here it gives the designer a life, the reduction in life. What is the reduction in life at a particular strain amplitude? Let me admit that fatigue tests are conducted at different strain amplitude. So there is no relationship. Like I conducted at 0.4% strain amplitude, then 0.5, 0.6, etc. We don't have a relation relating the mechanical property or fatigue property and hot corrosion, so that we can extrapolate and say at other strain amplitude how it will affect. But at particular strain amplitude, because in a gas turbine case, the life is known, say particular 718 alloy used for disc, it is seeing a maximum strain of 0.45% in a low cycle fatigue case, and it goes maximum to a 5,000 cycle. So in that case, that particular case, you can do the test and give what is the life reduction. Say 2,500 cycle, it reduces, so reduction of 50%. So it helps the designer give them the data of how the life reduction takes place in case of hot corrosive atmosphere. Then this micromechanism study help, like the sample was coated with salt. You can see the white portion as the chromia layer. In a 263 alloy, there is a protective chromia layer, but some of the portion are eaten by the molten salt mixture, which you can see in the photograph. And this in turn open the grains and the grain boundary areas and leads to catastrophic failure of the material. This is the type 1 hot corrosion. In the type 2 hot corrosion cases, you can see the type 2 hot corrosion is the vanadium pentoxide, the 3 salt mixture. Type 1 with Na2SO4 and NaCl. Type 2 is Na2SO4, NaCl and vanadium. So all these three reduce the melting point of the salt, and here the excessive pitting is there, which lead to the failure of the material. These are all the laboratory scale tests. So what are the conclusion from the LCF test conducted at 700, 800 degrees centigrade in air on bare and salt coated specimen? It is established that there is significant reduction in fatigue life across all values of total strain amplitude for both type 1 and type 2 hot corrosion. However, significant difference was observed in the micromechanism of fatigue failure in type 1 and type 2 hot corrosive atmosphere. In type 1 hot corrosive atmosphere, the fused salt mixture sporadically destroys the protective chromium oxide layer, attack and oxidize the grain boundaries, where the chromium oxide layer is destroyed. This leads to the final failure of the specimen. Whereas in type 2 hot corrosive atmosphere at 700 degrees centigrade, the mixture initiate surface crack, pit and finally surface crack. This is type 2, pit and surface crack, whereas this is type 1, which sporadically destroys the protective chromium oxide layer. Similarly, in the fatigue creep interaction, you can see the creep life of component, they decrease. The stress structure life decreases in the hot corrosive atmosphere. This is a in a histogram. The rupture time is shown at different temperature and stress level. Here the creep curve, and here the minimum creep rate is plotted against time. So from the creep, the conclusion is, it is clear that short duration test rupture life is not much affected. For a short duration test, the rupture life is not much affected because the hot corrosion, there is an incubation period. The salt melts at that temperature and penetrates or destroys the protective oxide layer or generate the pits that take some time. For a short duration, that may not be possible. So for short duration test, hot corrosion do not have much effect, but for the long duration test, there is a effect. Now, minimum creep rate increased magically for salt deposit sample compared to the bare mnemonic 263 sample. The minimum creep rate is not affected much. But as I told you, the hot corrosion effect in a longer period, decreasing the creep life of the material. And the total creep strain of the salt deposited sample is considerably less than that of the bare sample. Naturally, the strain in a salt deposited sample will be less because of the crack initiation and propagation, the premature crack initiation and propagation in case of a hot corrosive atmosphere. So that brings me to the whatever little I could share with all of you regarding hot corrosion effect on mechanical properties. I thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you, Dr. Sahu. We have about 7 to 10 minutes for any questions on this very interesting topic. I would request the concerned to put their audio off and introduce themselves and ask the necessary questions.
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah.
Nobody
This is
asked
Commodore Dr. R.K. Rana here. Yeah, fine. Thank you. Thank you very much for a nice presentation on gas turbine materials. So I assume that you are progressing very well in your laboratory, testing different types of materials for the gas turbine applications. Dr. Sahu?
Yes, I can hear you. Hello. Hello. Can you hear me?
Sir, both of you are audible. I would just request, sir, if the question can be asked.
Rakesh, nobody is able to hear you. Can you?
Hello, I can't.
Can you speak again?
Oh, I see. I said I'm Commodore Dr. Rana here. Compliments to Dr. Sahu for an excellent presentation. I was just wondering that you are progressing very well in your laboratory with all these tests.
Yes.
And I assume that you are closely working with GTRE as well.
You have a long interaction with G.
Okay. And I'm sure you have all the capabilities to undertake, investigation into if there is any failure in any gas turbine component. Hello.
Yes, sir,
It
you're
was,
audible, sir. I'll request
removed,
you.
again. Yeah. What is the question? I didn't get it because I again rejoined. I was removed somehow. I have rejoined. What is the question? please?
Yes, sir. Sir, I'll just moderate. Sir, sir, can you please ask the questions, sir? Because there are we have another lecture awaited, sir. If the concerned question can be asked, sir.
Okay, fine. Not to worry. I'll communicate with him directly. Not to worry.
Right, sir. Right, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Since you have less time, we can
Yes,
always
sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
catch
Are
up
there
with
any
him
other
later.
questions from the?
So I assume you'll be sharing the
Sir,
copy
we
of
will do it,
presentation.
sir. We will do that, sir. We will do that.
Excellent.
Yes, sir.
Excellent.
Yes, sir. Are there any other
Thank you
questions
very
from
much.
members?
Mukherjee, there was a question from in that message from I think the president, whether this is applicable to turbochargers also. I think if you see the message,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
that
Yes, sir. Dr.
Sahu
Sahu, can you answer that?
What is the question? What is the question?
Will it apply to
Sir,
the
is
turbochargers?
hot corrosion also applicable to turbochargers? Yes, sir.
For the seat purpose, yeah. Hot corrosion will be prevalent in turbochargers also. Naturally.
Okay, sir.
Yes. There is no difference.
Yes, sir. Go on, sir.
Yeah. Wherever there is a salt injection and temperature is high, this will be applicable.
Okay, thank you, sir. Sir, I think there is also some time left after the next presentation to if there are any questions. Thank you so much, Dr. Sahu. And we will move on to the next presentation by Dr. Madam Suman Mishra, who would be speaking on advanced coatings.
Hello. Good morning. Am I audible? Hello.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Over to you, ma'am. You're audible.
Okay. Thank you so much. Very good morning, or rather, just good noon to all of you. I especially thank all the members who have joined this talk, and particular to mention Mr. Arora, Mr. Commander Ravichandar, and the Commander Mukherjee. Very, very much thanks to all of you and other members. You people are much more knowledgeable than us in terms of your expertise, real expertise in the level side. And we are also very much proud of all of you that due to you, we are safe. Due to your engineering given to Navy, we all are safe here. Thank you so much to all of you. I shall go over to my presentation now. I hope it is visible.
It is visible, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. If you can just maximize the screen.
Yeah, just now. Just a minute. Okay. Okay, 1 second, it is loading. Huh? Actually, many of you who might not have come to our premise, this building, what you are seeing is our NML front side. It's a very, very old building, about more than we are celebrating 70 years of us this year. So this is the National Metallurgical Laboratory front side. This you have already told. Before I start, I want to acknowledge all the team members at NML and students, and in particular these three scientists, Dr. L.C. Pathak, Dr. A.K. Mahanti, and Dr. S.K. Tiwari. I am audible, right? Yeah. Hello.
Hello. Ma'am, you're audible. You're audible, ma'am. Everybody else's audio is off. You're audible, ma'am.
NML has worked on a very, very different kind of a coating, such as hardware resistance coatings, nanocomposite, multi-layered hard coatings, many system of this by PVD and CVD process. Thermal barrier coatings of test stabilized zirconia, bond coats, nickel base, and as well as the combination lanthanum strontium zirconate by thermal spray and EVPBD. We have a laboratory scale facilities for both spray and as well as the PVD deposition. We have worked on many different various composites by HVOF and air plasma processes for hydro turbines and other turbine applications, laser cladding, electrodeposition, corrosion resistance coating and antibacterial coating, where we have worked such as cadmium replacement, thermal spray, galvanizing, galvannealing. So I will be I shall be showing you because time is very less. So we then chromium free preservation, which is required today's date, where chromium is not environmental friendly. Then many different functional coatings we are working into, that is solar thermal, colored, RF window application, thermoelectric, self-healing, hydrophobic, by PVD, electrodeposition, and chemical processes. Besides that, we are also working on a very ultra high temperature ceramics, joining coatings of them by thermal spray and the diffusion process. We have many collaborations. Besides the many of the sponsors are with us of the government agency as well as the Indian industry. The names are given in as well as the abroad industries. Facility wise, we are for the laboratory scale, we have almost all facility available in terms of coating as well as in terms of their characterizations. Now coming to what I have done in my talk, I have just looked into literature and thought that what are the main challenges for the naval engineers or the marine engineers. I looked into it and I looked at there are two kind of challenges there. The first one is the turbine engine. You use either the gas turbine or it is a combination of the steam turbine and the gas turbine. So, but here the challenges are that you need to be, the efficiency should be increased, blade failures leading to shutdowns has to be reduced, erosion losses are there because a lot of sands also come into, beside the hot corrosion what Sahu has talked about it. So the corrosion is another very because salt water, sea water is there. So then heat losses are there during the process and lot of heat is getting generated that needs to be tapped into to make it a more efficient material, more efficient engine. And beside that, there is a lot of the environmental regulations. That means it needs, these are some design, this environmental regulations means you cannot have the output different gases, toxic gases, which is not good for the environment as well as for the sea algae and different species in the sea. So these are the all limitations with which a naval vessel has to work. This already Sahu has explained to you, so I am skipping this. But if you look into, if this gas turbine blades, you see that the material, I'm going to look at the material problem. See, if you see that combustors are made of the nickel-based superalloy mainly, where the rotors are made of ferritic steel, then turbines are again nickel-based ferrites, then single crystals are also used in the HP high pressure turbines or the directionally solidified alloy. Then austenitic steel and ferritic steel. If you look at to all those things, this nickel-based superalloy and the single crystal directionally solidified alloys are very costly, and each cost has a very huge cost. And making is very till to my knowledge, nobody in India makes. They all are imported as per today. So these things are very costly. They fail because of the high temperature or the corrosion or erosion, which I have already told you. Similarly, we all are aware about how they work at the different temperature. What are the different temperatures? The slide shows you that at that. So what are the advanced? So one needs to advance solutions. What could be the advanced solution with the existing material? Because India is not making right now a nickel-based single crystal anywhere in India. So, but whatever we have to have a better, so different solutions are not only India, but even abroad, these are the basic solutions that advanced thermal barrier coatings are required, abrasion resistant coatings are required in different parts also, not only in the blades, but also in the different parts of the body. Then alternative source of steam or fuel where we are using, where maybe we have to introduce somewhere renewable energy and extracting the waste heat when we are and get it recycled in the system, and advanced material for turbines. The another challenge which I looked into, that this is also a very big challenge for it, that is the biofouling is one of the big issue for all the vessels, because they get attached to the vessel and then the hydrodynamics of the vessel goes bad. It changes, and due to that lot of pressure comes on the engine to move, to maneuver it, and that gives a lot of energy decrease in there. So the efficiency of the vessel decreases. Plus, not only that, before that, also there's a lot of microbial corrosion and salt erosion in the vessel takes place, and they are very cost intensive, because today most of the time practices are that manually they are taken out or with the help of some machinery, and also this takes a lot of time and it has a lot of cost. So what are the solutions for such things? Previously, if you see the history wise, this I have taken from a source as given in the down. Let's say initially people used they used to coal tar, copper plating they did, and later on similarly they went on into self-polishing coatings, but most of these coatings had biocides, which is environmentally not favorable, and many of the environment regulation does not allow the sea should have any degeneration because of the coating materials, which may be harmful to those species. So these all are limitations. So advanced solutions for them are the suitable coating or treatment of the vessel, anti-corrosion, antibacterial, anti-biofouling coating, self-healing, and hydrophobic coating. Now, next I am going to tell you some of the things which we have worked on to. Not necessarily we have applied to any of the real vessel, very big vessel, but we have the capability. If it comes where the engineer, marine engineer, and the scientist has to work together, because when the big things come, you are the master. When the small things comes, probably we are better than you. So this has to be a synergy between both the scientists as well as the engineer. Then actual technology can come up. So coming to this, the coating processes, actually, if you look, because some of you may not have worked on the coating, just in the one slide I am going to, there are different processes by which one can coat. They are the chemical coating, that is by making a suitable solution and then you dip it. Another is the electrodeposition process, that is again a chemical process, soldier process, spin coating. The second is the thermal spray. The thermal spray is different kinds of thermal sprays are the wire, powder, plasma, and cold spray. These thermal sprays have become very, very commercially viable processes in today's day. The other is the cladding, where the different materials are cladded over that. One can do by the mechanical cladding, or it can be done by laser. Depends on the what you want. Accordingly, you choose the process, the cost, as well as the duration, performance, everything. One has to choose that. Another coating process is physical vapor deposition, where the different methods are thermal, electron beam, magnetron, sputtering, reactive sputtering, arc deposition, laser. These processes will be useful for very small components, such as a gas turbine, is small this thing. If you need a very less of a thickness, that time PVD process will be very good. But if you want to coat a vessel, PVD process better, nobody will use it. So it depends on where you want to apply and what kind of a performance is desired. Similarly, the chemical vapor deposition, this is one of the very good method where you can coat small as well as the bigger components. But it has its own limitation, and every process has its own advantage, disadvantage, because in the CVD process, the chemicals which are used, many of the times they are not environment friendly, and the maintenance is required during coating a lot. Some of the results of the NML work, few I have chosen to show you. which I feel that it may be useful, more useful to you. This is one of the nanocomposite coating we have developed on titanium, silicon, boron, carbon, right? You can see that they have a normal steel, as they are coated on the 4130 steel. They have a normal hardness of a 4130 steel around 200 to 300 HB. But after coating, the surface hardness goes to 22 to 35. It depends on under what condition it has been done. And so what happens that the wear resistance increases a lot. And along with that, they are very tough. They are good tough. They are able to get lot of abrasion. We have done lot of, you can see the fretting wear we have done, and that has been enhanced to a large extent because of, along with the, and they are also very much stable even at 800 degrees centigrade in oxidation, in the oxidizing atmosphere. This coating was sustained and the hardness was quite high, up to 30-35 gigapascal. So these coatings were not only having the hard and tough, and they had a very good wear resistance, plus they were stable at 800 degrees centigrade. Along with that, the liquid corrosion, the chemical corrosion in a seawater combination, that is 5% NaCl, 3.5% NaCl. The solution, you see that even up to 900 hours or so, there is no degradation in the coating. So this is another. Most of the processes we have, either they are published or they are patented. The another is the thermal barrier coating. We have worked on a different kind of a thermal barrier coating, such as yttrium barium yttria stabilized zirconia or the lanthanum zirconate. The yttria stabilized zirconia is a almost established thermal barrier coating all over the globe. The newer people are working on the lanthanum zirconate, where the studies are still, it has not been applied to the actual component, but it has been worked to show that it has a lot of potential and better than YHZ also. But still in the actual turbine, it has not been applied to the best of my knowledge yet. So we have worked on both the system. These are some of the microstructures that we are able to get a very, very fine size. Because very fine size, if we are able to coat even after sputtering and all, then what happens? The thermal conductivity increases, and that is a requirement of a good thermal barrier coating, right? So thermal conductivity decreases because of lot of conditions. This is one of the thermal spray process we have developed with the different process, and you can see that we have coated on a big ring, about 3-inch steel seal, and this is the actual turbine part which we got. Actually, maybe some of the JK Sahu or somebody might have got this gas turbine blade. On that, for the demonstration, we coated on that, and it had given a very good value in terms of its thermal barrier requirements. So we have this capacity on that. Similarly, we also did for the lanthanum zirconate by electron beam. In fact, electron beam evaporation is another alternate method for where actually if you go by a thermal spray, normally you need about 25 to 30 micron thickness. That makes it heavier. But to get the same thermal barrier properties over the nickel-based superalloys, by electron beam evaporation, you can make only by the 10 micron or less, you are able to get the same property or many times a better property of the thermal barrier by EBPBD process. So that is the advantage. So people, for many specialized application, they go for a EBPBD, otherwise generally by a HVOA process or the plasma arc process. Plasma CVD is plasma thermal spray, air plasma spray is used for the turbine thermal barrier coatings. These are some of the studies that I can do. This is just one slide I have put it because that we did a lot on the coating of stellite for the hydro turbines, and we got a very good enhancement in the wear properties of the hydro turbine blades. This is shown in the guided wave, actual guided wave. Similarly, we can have many other wear resistance coatings. This is titanium diboride, where we have done how the abrasion of the graphite can also be removed, and we have done like this. We have many more material compositions and all, which can show the very good conductivity, very good wear resistance, and high temperature sustainability, along with the corrosion resistance. So this kind of a coating will be more helpful for the engine and all other parts where you need a high temperature, as well as you need a high temperature, as well as you need a wear resistance, corrosion resistance, and thermal barrier coatings. So these are the some of the coatings I have presented to you. The next I am going to some of our results on the corrosion resistance, hydrophobic, anti-fouling, and this thing. See, antibacterial coating is very, very important. We work for the fuel tank application. This can be very much useful for you too in your fuel tank, beside the vessel also, where the vessel can be coated by the HVA process we developed. And we can show you that in the petrol and diesel, our coated material showed a very, very good. There was no degradation, whereas the normally other steel parts got degraded in very fast, within 24 hours or so. But our material, coated material, stayed very long. Then we did the microbial media, how it affects the motor. If we check that without coating, these all go bad in very fast, whereas when our coating composition HVOF coated, there was no microbial degradation was found. So this is also another, that this such kind of a coating can be applied to your vessels, which will give you the antibacterial as well as the anti-corrosion coatings. And we looked at that there was almost within 24 hours, initially some attack of this thing is there, but within 24 hours, no bacteria was attached to the coatings. So these may be a very useful coatings for the anti-fouling coatings for the vessels. So we have and there is no chrome or anything has been used. So they all are environment friendly. The another thing which is very much talked today and which is applicable to many, many applications, that is the super hydrophobic and self-cleaning coatings, which applies. And if it is a super hydrophobic means, hydrophobic means which does, one is afraid, hydro means water, phobic means afraid of. So hydrophobic means it is not going to, water in touch of water is not going to stay upon it. So once the hydrophobic coatings are made, the corrosion resistance will automatically decrease. Reason is that water is not going to come into contact, but the surface has to be made. Similarly, the same thing can be little by width, because the vessels are not only going to where the only water is there, but also they are going to somewhere where very cold is there. So even ice they have to cross into. So even anti-icing coatings are important for all these vessels. You can see that some of the how they affect. This is not my picture. This is taken from, this particular slide is taken from net, how the anti-icing coatings. So if you see that we have developed hard as well, where the scratch resistance is also there, and the hydrophobic coating on aluminum silicon nitride coating. And you can see that they are hard, so they are wear resistance, as well as they are a very good hydrophobic material. You can see this angle is contact angle decides. So it's a very, very good hydrophobic coating which can be used for the which will have a less corrosion to the vessel. This such thing can be done. Another is that the polymeric, now today polymeric coatings are used a lot for as a self-healing coating, where the self-healing has to be not only on the self-healing, it also has to be hydrophobic, so that water will also not come at the same time. Self-healing means, suppose there is a crack develops during the process, then it automatically heals. Otherwise, what will happen, if it will not heal, then gradually the portion will get corroded and it goes bad. For that, NML has developed the self-healing coating. It is some epoxy and polymer based coatings, and after doing that, you can see that how this was actually to study at the lab level. We intentionally made the crack scratches by the blade or the big knife, sharp knife, and you can see that it is by itself within 24 hours it gets self-healed. This is the thing which you are observing, and even corrosion resistance was very good when we looked into. If you see that, these are the some 2-3 kind of evaluation up to 1,000 hours. We did the study under the salt spray, so that even this salt spray is one of the very standard ASTM procedure to know that whether our coatings are going to have a long duration or not. So up to 1,000 hours, what you are seeing here, that there are 2-3 kinds of coatings were used. That is, one was the bare steel, and then over there some primer coating was there of the red oxide, and without primer coatings. Where primer coating is very much used in the practice for many applications, particularly for the outer shades, vessels, and all those things. So this primer coating, so we then intentionally cracked it. You can see that there is no degradation. Even these our coated material, even without primer, sustained up to 1,000 hours. So this is one of the, and these such coatings are very easy to apply by either you do by the spray process, or you can do by, I think for vessel and big vessels only spray process is the one can apply to the outer parts, so that it will stop the biofouling. The attachment will be much lesser as compared to the without coatings ones, and plus there is no such chemical is used here which can harm any of the species in the sea. That is another advantage. Otherwise, it will not become the seaworthy. This is the advantage here. Similarly, we have developed a very good solar thermal reflectors, which can be used where up to even and we saw that, and it was an aluminum sheet way, because they need to this can be used for the renewable energy source to heat your, if you are using a steam turbine, then heating that material. So we have developed up to about 1 feet by 1 feet kind of thing, but for a bigger thing one has to work together. Again, and we have developed many other techniques which is important. For the cadmium is a very not required, which is used at many places, not only in aerospace, but also it is used in many of the places in the compressors, and even as I understand that even home appliances also sometimes people have used, but actually cadmium is not allowed, and USA and other countries are now totally stopping all such because cadmium is one material which is a very good corrosion resistant. At the same time, it gives you a very good luster. So both beauty as well as the corrosion was maintained, but now these things are not. So we developed a lot alternative coating, the aluminium based alloy coating on different steel, which is 4130 was mainly which is used for many other processes for the structural applications. And you can see that we did all re-embeddlement test and other things, and it stayed very well, and it has also crossed the airworthiness. Other applications, naturally it will cross it. So here again you see that even after exposure of the steel, by the thickness of the coatings were not even 10 micron, and they stayed very well. There is no corrosion on the material. So similarly, we do the lot of electrodeposition we have done by the multi-modulated coating by zinc iron coatings, and we have processed it. This also saved our very good. This is called the composition modulated in the modulated composition in the layers or zinc paste. Zinc and iron actually multi-layers. So you can see that there are multi-layers were developed by electrodeposition, and they also gave a very good corrosion properties. And this also with some modification that can give a hydrophobic kind of a coating. This can also be given. So like this, we have another very important thing, which is at NML, which I would like to know you people, that galvanizing is a very important process which is used very much. I do not know how much, but we have a very good galvanizing simulator, hard tape process simulator, which is, and where we developed a new kind of aluminum, silicon, magnesium, copper, scandium coating, which is a very good corrosion resistance as well. The shining surface, this is particularly was developed for the automobile application, but I am sure such kind of a steel, better steel for the high strength, because high strength steel is now being used for many structural application. If any changes are there in the naval steel also, then time such coatings will be very much useful, where we have this advantage of the STPS simulator coatings once you develop is that if somebody is going to develop in a bigger actual plant, you don't have to change the parameter. That is why this is called simulator. It can be directly transferred to the actual commercial development with slight maybe a little bit not much you have to work for the bigger to smaller components. So with this another 2-3 slides I have to show you. That's it. Today chrome is a very not required material is considered, but chrome is very much used for the passivation process in many of the almost all corrosion resistance commercially. But hard, and this is not only corrosion resistant, but also it is a hard wear resistance also. So work was done that whether we very thin, and these chrome coatings are about 100 micron. So 100 micron thickness, it also makes it bulky some places. So we worked on the titanium silicon nanocomposite coating, and we showed that almost a similar, almost no wear resistance was seen, and even on the bend strength, the coating was so sustainable. And we compared with the commercially available made by the chemical electrodeposition process by the hard chrome that is called chrome plating, which is established process, but now people are moving from here because lot of hazardous initial materials are used, and at the same, and also there is a lot of emission of the hazardous materials also, and those electrolytes where to throw, that is also another issue. So this was the one where we did the here we did the by the PVD process, and the another one we did on the aluminum alloys for the chrome free coatings of the aluminum, and we again studied on the salt spray, and we saw that it can be chrome free, was almost up to 400 hours. We could test that time only to 400 hours, but further we have tested, it has gone much higher, plus its adhesion was also very good. Another lacquer coatings we have developed, which has shown better than the many of the standard Berger and other paints we have compared to them. And if you look at, this is the actual technology, have some of the whatever we had I have shown to you, we have transferred few of them in actual technology. One example is, though I could not put all of them here because it was belonging to defense and you belong to naval, so both of you are from the defense. Here there was a problem of the ordnance where a lot of cartridges had gone bad. We did that and passivated it, and they could sell very well. This has been transferred to an ordnance factory. Similarly, for the Titan company, we have similar things we have done it. I think here, do I have time or should I stop? Hello?
Ma'am, you can continue, ma'am. You have time.
Okay. I have only 4 or 5 slides. Another very important studies we did it, that is your tungsten carbide cobalt coating. This we did actually for zinc roll. This is a zinc roll is used during the galvanizing process. This is when the rolls are moving and going into the liquid bath of a zinc while galvanizing, what happens is a lot of material which goes into the solution, and that actually poisons the zinc bath. So what happens that first of all, they don't get the same corrosion property which is required for the while galvanizing. Second thing is that because the bath composition has changed, plus there is if you see that while galvanizing, lot of sludges come into, because the oxides and aluminum, because they all are these experiments are done around 460, that is the melting point of a zinc. So what happens that a lot of dross of the zinc, which comes as a zinc oxide or some other, they get to stick onto the sheets which is passing through, because sheets actually pass through over this roller, and like this there are many baths, and one can see that it goes. So because those drosses sticks to it, what happens is a lot of scratches in the material comes, and those scratches that they are now discarded by the steel industry. So for that, what we did, that there is the tungsten carbide cobalt, we did the deposition onto that. So there is a problem. It is not that we are only doing that, but there is a composition which actually, whereas normally these synchrones goes bad in 2 to 3 days only, they go bad. So we could enhance the material at the laboratory study up to 14 days. Our tungsten carbide cobalt was able to sustain 14 days, and after that it goes bad. So this was the significant achievement by us. We have a patents almost many of these processes, and like this we have many other coatings also, which maybe in later sometime we can discuss it. I again thank you. These are some of the this. We had about 7-8 people who are working on the on this material, on this coating area at NML, and many of us are have been recognized at the national level by different awards. We have good number of publications. This is one of the facilities, which is actually, it is my lab, so taking photograph was easier for me. This is actually my lab. This what you are seeing is electron beam operation unit. This is a sputtering unit, and the site you have almost, I have listed which belongs to our group, and along with the national, our central facility of standard SEM, TM, and other facilities. Thank you very much. Thank you for your kind, patient hearing. I look forward to your questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am. We'll start the question answer round. I will respect Captain CK Singh to ask the first question.
Ma'am, good afternoon to you. This is Captain CK Singh here. I'm from Naval Headquarters. And first of all, I would just like to compliment you first for a very professionally enriching presentation. Coming to the question per se, ma'am, I first introduce the context in which I am asking the question. The gas turbines per se are high-speed rotating machines, and therefore there is a huge amount of work that we do when we are doing its balancing. Now, you talked about the coatings which you've been working on, but has there been a study that has been conducted wherein we have established that after the gas turbine components have been actually coated with one of the coatings that you mentioned, when it comes to actually employing them in an existing gas turbine, what is the kind of vibration, the effects on vibration, or that may be produced because of the additional weight that will be added onto the rotor? This is my question.
Thank you. Thank you for your very good question, and thanks for your kind compliments to the presentation. This question is actually, this is a very serious issue, and that is the main cause of the failure in all the turbines. So coming to the question whether we have tested or not, because one has to do, it has not been tested by us on any, employed in any of the real turbine and get tested, but we have done few studies, only 3 or 4 studies we have done on the fatigue testing by giving the cyclic loading and all. There these coatings sustained. This work was done about 5 years back or so, and so we were happy that at least our things did not fail during the fatigue, but actual putting into the turbine has not been done by us. That we need somebody else. Somebody is if ready to come together and test in some way testing, we will be very happy to do that, because I also want that something should go what we are developing. You know, coating industry, coating companies are very less in India.
Thank you, ma'am, for your comments, and we would establish contact with you on such a proposal. Thank you.
I would be very happy to work with you together. You are much more knowledgeable than us in terms of actual applications. We both together can solve things.
Thank you, ma'am.
Take it forward.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. May I request IG Sadanandan to ask the next question?
Good morning, madam. This is IG Sadananda from Indian Coast Guard. very good presentation. I could take a lot of points from it. My question is regarding application of this coating for underwater hull of the ship. As of now, you may be aware that we are using SPC coating or FRC coating material. If this is a coating which is suitable for underwater hull available? If it is yes, what kind of a life it will have? And as the coating ages, will the resistance of the surface increase? Because it will have a big effect on the speed of the vessel.
Yeah, can I answer? Thank you so much.
Yes, please.
Thank you so much. I actually, frankly speaking, I have not gone to the very much deep into literature what hull is required. But what we can do, that our coatings have at laboratory scale have been proven that they can sustain corrosion as well as in the seawater and all those things. What we can do, start with and applying to the larger, particularly where the chemical based, whether I told you the spray wise we can do either it is a metal based coating. Today, see, people are moving towards even not even the polymer side. Frankly speaking, this is the future which is telling that people want more of a solid based coating rather than because some of the polymers also have a negative effect on the seawater. But both combinations are also being used now. What we can do to see the worthiness of our coating, whether it goes, and we can also see that how much it is comparing. So whatever is your material, along with that, our 2-3 types of coatings are there, where phobic, self-cleaning, everything. We can take up as initially to see the worthiness and compare the existing one which is being used and what we have developed, and we see that maybe it will take 2, 3, 4, 6 months or so, and we can know that whether it is, but in terms of properties, as a scientist, it is giving a very good corrosion resistance. It is stable in the salt environment. It is stable in the, it is hydrophobic. So it is able to, water is going to come into less contact. It is self-healing. So if by chance it is scratches, it would like to reduce your maintenance cost. Once it is as hydrophobic, many of the sludges will not come, which actually is a very big problem for the vessels because hydrodynamics is going to change. So at least what you are getting 100%, at least I feel that 50% even all those sludges which gets attached to your vessel, if it goes less, surely it is a great advantage in terms of the efficiency of your engine as well as the maneuvering of your material plus of your vessel and the maintenance of your vessel. So we can see first the worthiness of it, and then we can think of that by spray process we can very well use it, whether it is a polymer based or it is a total, just suppose zinc, nickel, copper or something like that. So any one process can be very well be applied for a bigger structures. I hope.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your clarification. We will contact you further to take it forward.
We would be very happy, sir. We want to work with you. If you people will not work with us, we are also national R&D. You are also a national system. So we both we look forward to work with together. If something comes out, it is our good luck and our good destiny also, I will say.
Thank you, ma'am. We have a question from INS Shivaji. There are about 35 under training officers in Shivaji who are also participating in this webinar. May I request INS Shivaji to ask the next question?
Good afternoon, ma'am. This is development from INS Shivaji. I would like to know how are they applied on a large scale, and are they pre-coated during construction phase or can they be coated during ship refits and repairs?
No, see what we can do. during making, if you will make now, then that means you have to have a new ship, right? This is totally based on me, what I understand. It's my answer to you. It's my opinion. See, when a newer vessel you are making, anyway, you can do that time also. The other thing is that suppose today existing ones, if you have already cleaned and maintained it already because cleaning is essential for your better vessel movement, right? Which time to time, that is your maintenance record you must be having, as I understand through literature. So that time also, when cleaning, it can be done on the old those vessels also by giving proper surface treatments to those vessels, and after that it can be applied. I am sure some of the colleagues are there who can, and this can be applied by like I feel that the way the car is sprayed, no, nowadays everything is sprayed, no, car in home also now bottles are even available. We do in home also. So by spraying you can do to very large volumes. By even the roboting arms can be used. So it should not be a big problem provided it meets the requirement of this thing.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. I think the last question I can ask, ma'am, you mentioned that, ma'am, chrome plating is chrome plating is towards the fag end because it is hard and hazardous. In the Navy, ma'am, most of our steam turbine rotors, they are all chrome plated. And while we are working towards substitutes, which primarily involves bulk metallic glass, BMG alloys, and tungsten carbide, but can you recommend any other headway or any other material that we can look into, ma'am, for our steam turbine rotors?
You are doing tungsten carbide cobalt right now, right?
That is right, ma'am.
Anyway,
yes,
that is one of, and the chrome plating is surely one has to go with that. There are other coatings also, that composite coatings are available right now. Often I am not able to tell you the exact compositions of that, but there are coatings. It's a composition one has to do, because tungsten carbide is again a very, very heavy material. Understand that. So you can't in the rotor shafts and engines, if you will put lot of weight, that means it is going to have a again efficiency will come. Give me some time. Probably titanium based some compositions are also being considered as a alternative. You have to give me time. Often right now I am not able to answer it, but the chrome free is surely India. It comes slowly, but abroad it has already come. People are moving very well. In aerospace, I am sure the same regulations will be there in the naval system also, USA and all. It has been it was announced from 2020 or so, but now it might have been shifted to whatever reasons of COVID to another 1-2 years. Even for the car and all, because chrome plating is hazardous to the environment. So people are going by the alternative methods. Even the chrome free is to go. Aluminum based coatings are also there, which works as a alternative coating. We have also developed, I showed you, free chrome this thing. But compared to all those two compositions, there are many other, but solid based will be much more required for the shafts and all. That will be better. Polymeric coatings will not sustain there, and so just give me some time. I don't want to answer you just in the air. Okay.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Commander Mukherjee, I saw one question from Dr. Jha, SK Jha. If he is around, then he can ask that. Maybe last question.
Yes, sir, absolutely, sir. So may I request Dr. SK Jha to ask his question?
Hello, SK Jha is our colleague only. Maybe he is going to give you some other solutions.
Yes, ma'am.
Right now, I have not asked any question. For this coating, I have not asked. Actually, earlier speaker, Dr. Sahu thing, I just asked about the vanadium oxide thing.
Yes, sir. What you asked was for the vanadium pentoxide. Would
Yes,
Dr.
yes.
Sahu like to answer that question, sir?
What is the question? Can you repeat?
Actually, just I have asked that one, is it possible to use the same vanadium oxide for the energy storage or conversion materials? Because you have given that one, this has been used in extensive quantity.
Actually, we don't use directly vanadium oxide. We use sodium metavanadate, and vanadium oxide is a reaction product. Directly, vanadium oxide is not possible. We do a sodium salt of vanadate, either meta or divanadate, for the coating purpose.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sahu. I shall now convey the vote of thanks on behalf of Commodore A. Ravichandar, the chairman of the Institute of Marine Engineers to Delhi branch. I extend our gratitude to Dr. Indranil Chatturaj, the director, NML Jamshedpur, Dr. J.K. Sahu, and Dr. Suman K.R. Mishra. With a special thank you to Dr. J.V.S. Murthy for being our liaison towards the presentation. We look forward to many more such interactions, and any further questions can be emailed to me on my email ID, and we shall take up the same with NML Jamshedpur. I once again thank all the speakers and the director, NML Jamshedpur. Thank you very much to all members for taking out their time.
Thank you very much to all of you for giving us time to interact with you. And my email is suman@nmlindia.org. If anyone wants to write, they may write SUMAN Suman. This is my first name. @nmlindia.org is the same for everyone. I look forward to have a collaboration. Pardon?
Thank you so much, ma'am.
I would like to thank the Institute. We are really appreciative of the facilities that you provided us, and we hope we continue in this with this good beginning that we have made with the Navy and extend it to all other marine applications. Looking forward to all your collaborations. Thanks a lot once again from NML.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir. We have the permission of the chairman to log out, sir.
I will forward all the recordings to all the members. Others who are interested may send the email ID to Commander Mukherjee or delhi@mre.in. It will be forwarded to them.
All I can want to say is once again, thank you so much, Dr. Indranil and all the speakers from NML. It was wonderful research-based, talk. I think I think we should continue this kind of things. And today we had some young budding marine engineers, around 35 of them joining us from our training institutes at Lonavala. So that is I think is a plus, big plus, and a good beginning.
Sir, I have a curiosity to see those things. I have not seen it from real. Unless you see, no, you don't, and you can really solve.
Ma'am,
I have not seen them.
Dr. Murthy is very well versed with all this.
Yeah, he is from Visakhapatnam, so he can go to docks. I cannot. I am not from Visakhapatnam.
No. You don't have to go to the dock side. There is a big organization at Visakhapatnam. Next time when you go, maybe you can accompany him, and the gas turbine and the generators all opened up, and he has been a great help.
Yeah, that will be very helpful to really understand.
Anytime, ma'am, we can do whatever we can to make your visit possible there, and you let us know, please.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, sir.
Thank Thank you and bye-bye.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. We may all log out now, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Abhinandan, thank you very much
Thank you,
for
sir.
moderating. Yeah.
Thank you to all.
Thank you, Abhinandan. Thank you so very much to IMA itself.
Thank you so much, sir.